Hi, everyone. I'm welcoming Ellen Newhouse today. Hi, Ellen. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good and I'm so excited for this conversation. Oh my gosh, I can feel it bubbling up in me. I'm so excited.
Thank you for being here. I love you to death. So I'm going to start by reading an intro, a bio of Ellen, so everybody knows about you. And then our subject for today is the dark night of the soul, which I
Ooh,
talk about in It Opens My Novel Water. And we're going to talk about our dark nights of the soul many years ago and how we came out of it. But first, an intro. For the past 30 years, Ellen has been in private practice integrating intuitive coaching with acupuncture, sound healing, and energy medicine. She has also taught transformational workshops throughout the US and Mexico. She is the author of the Amazon best-selling memoir, Nothing Ever Goes On Here.
mm,
For the past year, Ellen has been performing her one-woman play, also called Nothing Ever Goes On Here, in Seattle, LA, and she was invited to open in New York City before COVID-19 changed everything.
yes.
Ellen has taken this opportunity to work on writing her next two books, a self-helpish book and another, which is a continuation of the memoir. She's also writing new songs for an upcoming transformational entertainment evening. Welcome, Ellen. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, well, thank you. I think it's a wonderful conversation to be having right now
Yeah.
during these dark nights, you know.
Yeah. So Ellen and I had a chat before I started recording, and what we talked about was we're in a dark night of the soul right now. The reason I'm doing this, my intent of this um, video, these conversations, this conversation with Ellen, is to help anyone having that dark night of the soul,
Mm.
because Ellen and I had our own 25, 30 years ago. And uh, I really have a very profound intent to help people who are going through it now. And like Ellen and like me, we did not know what was going on, and we did not know what to do about it, and we did not know what I did not know what my purpose was. I'm going to let Ellen speak her own truth here. And I had to spend years trying to figure out, first, how not to be so depressed I didn't want to be alive,
Yeah.
and second, how to find my purpose, and then third, how to live it within a system that I no longer believed in at all. So Ellen had a really fascinating thing that you were talking about, Ellen, before I hit record, about the phases. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so what I've noticed in our history, throughout history, there have been openings for consciousness to evolve in every single human being who hears the call for awakening. We had the first, well, one of the first waves, because there were many before, but one of the first waves was during the 1960s. And we had many people going off to India and doing acid. Ram Dass is one of the most notable, and he speaks in all of his books about that particular journey. And they were using acid, I think a lot like how the Peruvian shamans use ayahuasca today, in an attempt to awaken the consciousness within themselves. And then we had the wave, Carrie, that you and I went through, which was in the 1980s. And that wave was then entitled the New Age Movement. But like you were saying in your introduction, for me, that was a very scary time because we didn't have a lot of healers and guides that we have today. I mean, there are so many people today who people can call upon if they want to know, like, what am I feeling? There was, Carrie, a really important book that I read at that point in my life that really helped me. And I want to bring it up. I don't know if it's still in print. If it is, it really is very important. It's called Spiritual Emergency.
I
And
got a copy of it not too long ago,
oh,
and
good.
so did a client.
Oh,
So I do
good.
think it's still out there. And I want to tell everyone really briefly, the Ram Dass book, Spiritual Emergency, all of these things, I will put a link and the author and everything around this. So this is going to be resources for anyone going through the dark night right now. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, great. And in that book, what it does is it differentiates between pure mental illness and spiritual awakening, because often it can look like you're having a nervous breakdown or a psychotic break. And for me, that book was a lifesaver, especially because I do have a mother who was mentally ill, and who spent a lot of time in and out of mental institutions. So it was extraordinarily scary for me when I began to have this awakening, which looked like a breakdown, you know?
Yeah. And
And
so I'm sorry, Ellen. I'm going to ask one more question. I should have brought a pen. I have my phone
well, I
hanging from a
did
tree.
because I was like, I know this is
Yeah.
going to be
I was
so.
like, I've got to write some of these things down. I have my phone hanging from a tree, so I want to tell everyone if it moves. It's because the wind hitting the branch. Um, but do you have any insight into the type of dark night that we talked about Ram Dass's era, the 60s, 70s? We talked about ours, that mine was early 90s, yours was 80s.
Mm.
Now we're going through a new opening, a new breakthrough. Do you have any insights into the flavor of the pandemic dark night that's happening?
Yeah, I think this particular dark night is not just personal. It's obviously very collective. And I think that it is quite on purpose because for me, this pandemic is not just about the breakdown within one person, but it's the breakdown within our systems. So it's the environmental system that is broken down. It is our governmental systems that are broken down. It's our political system that is broken down. So the it's so layered. And what I find exciting, although I don't know, many people might say the word exciting, is that what I find helpful in this period is that it's just not like, say, one person like me or you going through a breakdown, breakthrough. It's the entire population. And so I would hope that people would feel less alone, although I know the isolation that so many
Yeah.
people are experiencing, maybe keeping them from understanding that many people are going through the same thing. Hence why this conversation is actually so important, Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually feeling this as we're talking
Me too.
that, yeah, I'm like, wow, this is a really important conversation because there are those of us who have gone through this and who have worked it through and are working in an alternative. We've kind of moved away from the systems that aren't working. And what Ellen and I do, she does in her healing work, and I do as a book coach, is we work in our own system. We've kind of created our own system to be part of the answer. But first, we want to talk about the dark night, because to me, there's no way to help you by saying, "Oh, you'll get there." Just find your purpose. Go do it. Um, so I wanted to say first what I thought when you talked about spiritual emergency and madness. What I loved about that was when I had my dark night, I was in Seattle. This is in Water, the novel. It's the opening chapter. And I did debate whether or not to put like Dark Knight suicidal ideation as the opening chapter, but I couldn't. I felt very guided, and I felt like I could not start with that.
Okay,
So
can
I'm
I just say
go
one
ahead.
thing about that?
Yes.
That chapter, it's so incredibly powerful and dense. Like I have now read it, I think 4 times. And I keep going back to it. I'm like, Ellen, you need to finish the book so you can write your review of it. And I'm like, no, I have gone back to it 4 times. Every time I go back to it, what I love about it is it's so layered in truth. I mean, I have goosebumps. Can I just tell you?
Oh,
I have
thank you.
goosebumps because
Thank you.
I can't believe, didn't think I would cry. Mm, I can't believe the courage that you took to tell the truth of how horrible it feels to go through something like that. And it's such a gift to anybody who has gone through or is currently going through any form of a dark night of the soul. So my
Thank you. So
darling,
I want to
thank you.
thank you because
Yeah,
I want to tell you that's why I tell as close to the truth as you do in your books, as authentically the truth, which is layered.
yeah.
So you get one truth in your 20s, another in your 30s, right? Many layers of truth. But that's my goal, is the truth as close to it as I can, so that if other people read it, oh yeah, I already had someone lash out because it triggered them. That's okay. You
And
know, when
that's
you speak,
okay.
yeah, when you speak your truth, that's going to happen, guys.
Yeah,
But it's time, because
yeah.
the world's like, we need you to speak your truth and be in your truth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Obviously. But anyway, the thing I wanted to say about the madness was, the biggest memory I have was, if I go see someone. So I was in Seattle. It was 1994, 5. I was 29, 28, 29 years old. And I had the darkest night that lasted weeks and weeks directly on the futon, and months and
Mm.
years, but weeks directly on my futon, had a futon. And because I was so young. And I thought, if I go see someone, they're going to define me as crazy. They are going to make sure that I am mad.
Yeah.
And I didn't seek out any help. This is way before I met you and all of the people who are out there who can help.
Yeah.
And this segues really lovingly and in a good way to the fact of what you just said, that there's so many people who can help. But one of the things I want to say is, I'm the kind of bridge person, Ellen, where I work with a lot of people who don't believe in metaphysical, mystical
Hmm.
energy stuff. And so people listening to this are going to be, this is too far out. and and what I would say is, there's so much to say about that, and I'd love for you to speak about it too, Ellen. But for me, it's, yes, when I first heard about it, and this is in water as well, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to see a psychic. What a loser I am, you know?
Right, we're on the same page.
Okay, tell
And
me, tell me.
I mean, so in 19, let me see. I think it was 1986. Let's just say it was 1986, where I woke up and I couldn't breathe. And I spent 2 years in Western medicine. And at that point in my life, I had a lot of money. I worked in New York City um, in the publishing business, and I made a lot of money anyway, so I could afford the best doctors. And after 2 years, when they basically said, okay, look at, we all agree that you're not getting enough oxygen, you're not breathing well enough, and we finally have a solution, because all their medicine didn't work. And their solution was, I leaned in, and it was an oxygen tank.
Wow. And how
Yeah,
old were you?
26. At that
Oh,
point, it was 2 years later, so I was 28. And when that happened, I realized that my demigods, which growing up in a Jewish culture, in the time that I grew up, doctors were like demigods. When your demigods die on the fence, I mean, you are really in trouble. And so I didn't know what to do. The only thing I could think to do was to go to God. And that began a whole conversation, a whole change of my life. And I remember going to my very first psychic thinking, just like you, what the F am I doing? Like, what am I doing, people? I am not a groovy person. I do not believe in any holistic healing, woo woo, na na na, nothing. I mean, at that time, by that time, there were lots of people, I don't know if you remember, um, buying huge crystals and
oh
burning
yeah. Oh
all
yeah.
sorts of weird stuff and wearing patchouli. People, I am none of those things. And yet, by finding out the limitations of Western medicine for me at that moment, it opened a door into new possibilities. But in those years, I am telling you, the new possibilities looked very strange, like people wearing big earrings and patchouli and flowing things. And I was just like, oh, people, please give me a break. You know, I was very Western, Westernly oriented, let's put it that way. So, so for
Yeah.
anybody listening to this
Yes.
who isn't woo-woo, who
Yes.
doesn't um, understand alternative medicine, that's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to be woo-woo. My patients are predominantly everyday people who don't believe in woo-woo, I will tell you. And what we find is a common language. So if you're having a hard time and you don't believe in woo woo, but you don't feel aligned with, say, a diagnosis that you may have gotten, then why not just open the door? Open the door to some new possibility because, look, I mean, I don't wear patchouli. I, you know, I I just want to open the door because I know how scary it is to have strange things going on, to feeling very depressed, to feeling extremely anxious. And, you know, maybe you don't want to go on prescription medication. There are alternatives that are not weird. I will just tell you that.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, I had a conversation on another interview about this.
Mhm.
The biggest issue I have too is the mainstream systems aren't working. And that's, very masculine paradigm that we're living in. I had this conversation with Judith Laxer in the Divine Feminine video. If anyone watching this wants to also watch that one. But what we're talking about is years and years of a system denigrating the intuitive.
Mm.
And you talk about acupuncture being woo. Acupuncture is how many thousands of years old? How many thousands of years old is it? Anyway, go ahead.
Well, this is a really good point because I think there's an intersection between what's going on in that we've had a basic system set up by the patriarchy for years. And when I speak about this, people, this is not about women versus men. So the divine feminine lives within all of us, as does the divine masculine. And what I think, Carrie, this is such an opportunity right now for all of us is to awaken to the balancing of the divine feminine with the divine masculine. Now, the systems that are breaking down are are examples of the wounded masculine in play that no longer can hold itself up. And the divine feminine is rising within all of us. And that is partly what's causing a lot of confusion, I think, because,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
all these things like people are getting in touch with me. They're saying, I am having dreams, like crazy dreams that are so disturbing. I am hearing some odd, weird voices in my head. I'm extremely anxious. I'm extremely depressed. So all of these things are the actually the call and the opening of what we normally call the dark night of the soul. So
Yeah.
if you're
And yeah. And what I wanted to say to people was that you're denigrating your own intuition and your own ability to your own feminine because society has taught you to denigrate it. And I think for a lot of people I work with, that will resonate. Like, can you challenge yourself to see why you have the attitudes for the very thing you feel? I know many people are feeling this, they're feeling called toward it. At
yeah.
the same thing, at the same time, they feel, oh, that's hokey, like I did when I started. So what I want Ellen and I to do is talk about our own past, because it's very easy to talk about this in a big way, right? And I want us to talk about our own paths and how we dealt with the dark night of the soul. So I'll start, and then Ellen will have you describe yours. So
Okay.
I write about this in Water, where I had the dark night of the soul, and I basically very much hit bottom, and I had to choose whether to live or die. And it really was just a very clear choice as I was laying on that futon. You're either going to live or you're going to, die. So I said, okay, I'm going to live. But that didn't mean I just suddenly popped out like, woohoo, flowers and rainbows, and I'm so happy. So I basically first sought out anything alternative to what I knew, which was a psychic, right? Who gave me a reading. And then over time, I actually went on walkabouts. And I want to tell this to people because when I've coached people, I've recommended walkabouts where nothing you do is wrong. Everything you do is right. It's experimentation. So my point being that if you go on a walkabout and something doesn't work, don't think of that as failure. Think of that as you're exploring and you're experimenting. Just so clear to you and I today, but I remember back at the time, it felt horrible if something didn't work out. How ridiculous. It's just life. You're experimenting with living. At any rate, what I did then, and you can do this even online now because of the social distancing, and there's so much stuff online, is I explored things like tarot, past life regression, shamanism, but I didn't just do that. I also went on a church walkabout. I went from church to church to church to see where I could find spirit. And I didn't like the word God because the God that I was trained was male and white and had a long beard and could smite you at any moment. So I was seeking my connection to spirit, and my journey of doing all of these things led me to the understanding that I was a mystic. And owning that changed everything. But I will say it took 3 years to even begin to understand. And then what you begin to understand is this journey is a lifetime journey. And that's when you just really rest into it. You find, so what I would suggest to anybody watching this is looking for their own intuitive, divine feminine, however you want to put it, connection, is to just try all these different things. There's a lot of free stuff all over YouTube and all over the internet. Just try all these different modalities that interest you at all. And see what, like throwing pasta against the wall, see what sticks to the wall. See what sticks, because what'll stick will be, this is how you know. This is so obvious, right, Ellen? But it wasn't at the time. What sticks is what gives you vibes in your toes that lead all the way up to your groin, and then goes right up and you feel really like hot and sexy about it. That's the way I know for me. I'm like, okay, that's the thing. Who cares what it is? Don't let society tell you what it should be, because look at where society's at. They're wrong, people. So find your vibe, by exploring very physically. So a lot of times we're talking about this so amorphously that I like to be very practical. Yes. Go into YouTube, go into the internet, Google some things you like. If it's tarot, look up like a free YouTube tarot video. If it's acupuncture, start watching or reading about acupuncture. If it's just learning how to use your intuition, there's so many books out there on how to learn to use your intuition. So that's my advice. What are you thinking, Ellen, about this?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I want to say Carrie is a much, much easier to accept her mission than I was. I am of a different sort. I'm a much more willful ilk, if you wish. And so for me, it took many, many more years to accept that I was a healer. I fought it tooth and nail all the way. But I want to say this first. If you're so anxious that you can't leave your house, you're not alone. If you're so depressed you can barely lift yourself off of the bed, you're not alone. If you're hearing bizarre things in your head, you're not alone. And there is nothing irrevocably wrong with you. Okay? I want to start from there because I think so often people get scared and panicked that maybe there is something so wrong with me that I will never be okay. And believe me, if Carrie and I are okay, believe me, anybody can be okay.
Anybody can. Anybody can.
I mean,
that's so true. That is so true. Oh my God, that's so true.
I mean, right? So that's the first thing is you are okay. And what I know about you is that you're amazing. And how can I say that not even knowing you is because you are a divine, beautiful spirit of God, whatever God means to you. And as such, there is nothing wrong with you. It may be that there is everything right with you, and you're hitting um, a place within the limited box that you've put yourself in for many different reasons. And you're just needing to push out beyond those limiting beliefs. All right. So let's start there. Then absolutely follow everything Carrie says. I would even sign up to have a tarot reading with Carrie. She's amazing. She's not always easy, but she
I say the truth a little too much, I think.
yes, and I've had many, many right readings with Carrie, and I'm here to tell you, she's amazing, not always easy, but it don't kill the messenger. I've tried a few times, don't do it. All right. Then, if you're really struggling, like you can't get off of the couch or the bed, there are hotlines. Use them, they're free. The other things, if you have life insurance, health insurance, which is kind of like life insurance these days, see who you can contact. Now, to Carrie's point, you do want to be careful who you see because sometimes people see things very limited. And I remember when I was going through my breakthrough period, I saw a wonderful therapist who said to me, Ellen, nobody would ever choose to do what you're doing without A, medication, or B, being hospitalized. And I said, yeah, well, that's not happening. So we're going to do it the way I'm going to do it. I don't recommend my way because it was the hardest way. However, today there are so many alternative over-the-counter things that can help. And Carrie, I want to give a list of those. Can we do that?
Actually, will you send it to me via email right after this? I'll link it. I'll put it in the comments right with the video.
Okay.
So anyone watching this video, I'll put it on YouTube in the comments as well. So if they just go see it on YouTube, they see it on my social media, I'll put it in the comments. And that will mean you'll want to put it in the comments too.
Perfect. Okay.
Because I think it'd be easier to remember it, right? If they have it written.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So just know that there are so many things that you can pop in your mouth over the counter that will start to calm things down. Then, get a journal out and start writing in that journal. Just put your pen to a paper, set your alarm for say 10 minutes. Do not pick the pen up and just write. Write everything that's going on in you. And when you're done, close the book. I don't want you to look at it. Just close that book. And every day, just write in a journal and just to start to tell your truth. And give yourself permission just to scream on a page. That has helped me enormously and so many of my patients.
Me too. So what I want to say too is what I got at certain low points is even one sentence. You could write one sentence a day. So at my hardest parts, it was just one sentence a day. But even that sentence over time, what happens is, so I have 14 boxes of journals from my dark night. It's funny that you say that because that's exactly what I did.
Yes.
And I have 14 boxes of them. And what happens is you think, well, I'm so alone. Oh, great. Let me just write in a journal. I'll feel I'm still alone. But it's weird. There's something about writing in a journal that takes the edge off the loneliness. When I look at those boxes of journals now, I feel like they're like this incredible friend. Like it's this weird energy around the journals, like this incredible friend who knows so much of the boxes of journals.
Yes.
And and what the wonderful
sorry, go ahead.
Well, the wonderful thing about that is you can get 25-cent notebooks now with back to school. So it doesn't, could be very inexpensive way to start self-healing. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And like to Carrie's point, I feel like the journal becomes a friend, but it also starts in some strange way it becomes like a feedback loop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
believe it or not, it will feed things back to you. You'll begin to hear yourself in a new way. Right, Carrie? Didn't you hear?
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, it did take a while. I remember I was teaching writing classes in Seattle, and I was talking about journaling to the writing classes. And I pulled out one of my journals to prepare for the class. And I was looking through it and I was like, oh my God, let it go, Carrie. Let it go. It was like 2 entire journals of one subject I was obsessed with. I was like reading, going, let it go, Carrie, let it go. So it's also an interesting, yeah, like, you can completely be yourself on the page. I can be obsessive. Uh, I don't have to shift that. Do you hear that noise, Ellen?
I do. I'm getting messages. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
that's
Yeah.
okay. They're
Yes.
dinging.
But
Okay.
what I love about it, Carrie, is
Okay.
that, that's like a divine ding. So
Yeah.
can you repeat what you just said? Because I always find those like perfectly timed. So can you repeat what you just said?
Well, I would just say too that you don't have to be like this beautiful, figured out, poetic person in your journal.
Oh God,
You
no.
could, yeah, you can obsess. That's all I was saying, is that it was so interesting to look through 2 journals, and I had one, and I still think back about that. And I even took it to class and I said, look, I'm obsessing. I didn't let them read it, but I was saying, it's okay. Just be yourself in the journal.
Yes.
Just be yourself.
And that's a great point, is let yourself be a mess.
Yes.
Let yourself be a mess. You can actually function better if you allow yourself to be a mess, because so many times we expect so much out of ourselves. And if we're like off in any way, we're like, no, 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 get back to what
Yeah.
you're supposed to be,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and what's funny is this leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk to you about,
Okay.
which is because I've known you how many years now, Ellen, so many years. And it's a subject matter Ellen and I have come back to many times in many ways, and I love it so much. But it has to do with what you just said.
Okay.
I really do believe that true healing comes from like every single emotion, that you don't try to repress your emotions and you work with them. So the issue is, at first, like if you have rage, you of course don't want to use that rage against somebody else, right? Of course, of course. So you're first learning how, there are first steps that Ellen is talking about in anyone's healing process, where you're first trying to come to some stabilized position. But after that, what worked against me was, I have very tumultuous emotions, and I always have. I've always been extremely internal dreams and so much going on, and then presenting like, hello. Oh shoot, Ellen.
Yes.
Ellen, are you there? I
Yeah.
lost the
Yeah.
video. Sorry, I'm
Love
gonna
it.
have.
I love it. It became tumultuous.
I know. So that's me, right? And in the water, I talk about the dashboard dog, where I felt like my whole life was nodding and smiling like a dashboard dog to keep everybody else happy.
Yeah.
My opening, and I call it around being an artist, and that's the subject matter I want to talk about, Ellen, was the understanding that, yeah, as a coach and a healer, I don't want to be all over you with my emotions. So I have to hold myself in that role. But for me, that just wasn't enough. I was like, I can't just be this, oh, let me help you heal. I just can't do it. I can do it, but not if I don't have my own outlet. So art for me, both writing and visual art, became an ability to absolutely express every emotion on the canvas and on the page.
Yes.
And I know Ellen and I have talked about this. So I had a tremendous resistance, almost as bad as the Dark Night. So I had the Dark Night, doing all the exploration, doing all my healing with mentors who were metaphysical healers and therapists, got to a place a few years later where I was being called to do visual art, and everything in me was like, fuck, oh, no, sorry. Oh, was no way am I doing that. No way. And all I could think of was I'm going to be a bag lady and I'm going to be living in it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to tell anyone listening to that who's also feeling that call, especially during a pandemic. It's like, oh yeah, now you're going to be an artist, right? It's like how preposterous, but it isn't. It's exactly what this world needs.
Oh, yes.
Beauty and joy, but also what we need is the ability to really be ourselves and truly express everything and not have to hold it back. So I know Ellen and I have had this conversation a lot. So I want Ellen to speak about the whole path to the artist too.
Yes. So first, what comes to me, and sorry, I hope this doesn't seem solicitous, but if people are watching this and they want a way through this, please read Water when it comes out. Carrie, when does that come out?
October, beginning of October. Thank you, Ellen, because that's why I wrote it. This
Yes,
is
no,
exactly why I wrote
Carrie,
it.
again, goosebumps. I mean, when I read this book, and oh, you guys, if you've read Carrie's other books, this is totally different. And the other books are wonderful, but for me, this book, for anybody struggling, is such a gift. Carrie, I mean, honestly, you know, this book, when I read it, I think to myself, I wish I had had that book when I was having my hardest days. It would have been the Bible that I held on to, because it's written A, so beautifully, but B, more importantly, it's written from the perspective of somebody really experiencing the depths of their darkness. And you have done, I really hope this book is a bestseller, because the world needs this book. And I'm so serious about this. Like, I love you, and you know I love you, but this is beyond that, because it's so well done, and it really will help you if you're having a hard time. You will not feel alone. You will feel like you've met your kindred spirit. You'll be like, oh my God, she experienced that. Oh my God, I get this. So please read the book when it comes out. And
Oh, Ellen, thank you. Because that's why I wrote it. I actually felt called. All of my books were called in this way. But I will tell you that Ellen has never been this effusive about it, but any of the books. So I'm really believing her right now. So I just tell you that.
yeah,
But and thank you, Ellen, so much. But that is why I wrote it. I was like, I want to show people what it was really like, because people go, oh, you have everything. You're an artist and you're a writer. What's your, what's the, and you have no idea.
well,
You too, Ellen, like, um,
well,
Ellen's book. Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
What's so important about this book, Water, for me, is that, Carrie, you really get to, it's so easy. We talk about the dark night of the soul. It doesn't sound that bad. But when you're experiencing, it is like you're hanging on like by a nail.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
nailed that in the book
Oh, good.
so well.
Yeah.
And, and I'm so grateful, because I will give all of my patients that book to read.
Oh, thank you, Ellen. Thank you. Because it is why I wrote it, because they always say, write the book you wish you had had. And
Yes.
I had no one. I had nothing. I had people that I was going to see who were mentors, but it really is, the problem is it's a very personal journey, even with the mentors.
Yes.
It's extremely.
And Carrie's version may not be your version, but
Yeah. Yeah.
identify the difficulty. Okay, so now getting to the light. So coming through the darkness, being able to understand it, knowing that you're just going through an opening, an awakening. Then those of you who are called to do something artistic, again, unlike Carrie, am not a willing subject. So I was called at the behest of all of my patients to write a book about my journey, because they felt that it would help so many people. And then I tried 2 times and I gave up. I had a bucket, a bag. It was a plastic, a orange and yellow basket that I put all my writing in. But I wanted my book to be a healing book. And when I would read what I wrote, all I read was my rage. So I went back to therapy. And eventually I got a call from a patient who had met Carrie in Boston, who said, Ellen, I have met the person who is going to make your book possible. Please call her immediately. And I was like, this was like I had given up on writing. I was like, I don't need to write. I'm good. And I called Carrie and we began this journey. But my first year on the journey of writing my book was not really about writing a book, although it was. I wrote and I resisted and I wrote and I resisted. And I resisted the call of being an artist. And Carrie would do readings for me in between our writing sessions. And always it was one of the common messages was Ellen, accept being an artist. The problem with that, and maybe some of you will have had a similar experience, is that I had been brainwashed, I suppose is the best word, but I had been taught that being an artist would end me up as either a drunkard in the Bowery, which is in New York City, poverty stricken, divorced. This is the funniest thing, Carrie. I don't even know if I ever told you this, but, or the possibility of being a lesbian. I mean,
So I want to interrupt just a second to say Ellen's telling this very calmly, but her reaction to being told that she was an artist was so mean. And
we are still friends, people.
Oh yeah, of course, because I know the resistance to the call. If I know resistance. And also I know the trigger it creates in us is the thing that we can be so angry and against could be the very thing that is what our life is supposed to, will bring us the greatest joy. It's tripped out. But
Yes.
what I love about it's not just that you were mean once. I lost count. I lost count. And even not even too long ago, before you fully owned the performance art.
Yes.
And then now, I think, have you fully owned it, do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I now am so excited to be doing my art. And so, you guys, even after my book was published,
Yes, she was
I,
so mean to me.
I was still so in resistance because the fear was so terrible. And I just have news for you. If any of you decide to write a book, um, be prepared for the reactions that may come from your family. And that's
Yeah.
mostly, I would say, for people writing memoir. Um, I don't know though, Carrie.
No, it's not. So
No?
this is great though that you're bringing this up, because this speaks to the larger issue of truly owning your path and your purpose, which is what the dark night can bring you to. So I did a huge shift when I started blessing the dark night. When I started saying, oh, having gratitude for it, because it's saying, we're ready to change you now, my friend. And we're going to change you in such a great way, even though it's going to feel like your skin's being pulled from your body. Really, it's really painful. But Ellen, you were saying, sorry, what were you saying about, what were you saying? I
That
lost my train.
if you decide to write a book, please
Oh,
be
yeah.
prepared for
That,
when it's published, the
yeah.
reaction from family.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, this is a bigger issue anytime you find purpose. And I know people with memoir feel it really intensely when they're writing memoir, but it's truly fiction as well. But anytime you find your purpose and start moving towards it, that action, expect a pulling back reaction or a rejection reaction from family or anyone who's super close to you, because you're challenging them living in the status quo as you're moving into healing. But yes, it is absolutely exaggerated with like a semi-autobiographical novel, and even more exaggerated with memoir.
Yeah.
And you can, I tell people this when I coach them on books, don't show it to family members. And to this day, there are many family members who I'm even close to who don't read my books.
Yes.
And these aren't even people I'm alienated from at all. I just say, my problem is it creates such a reaction in them because often they're not living their purpose. So then you're fragile because you've just put a book out there. You're this fragile, open thing, and then suddenly you're dealing with slings and arrows
Yes, but that's
from,
getting ahead of ourselves, because
yeah,
I
yes,
really do want to encourage people that if you're going through a dark night of the soul, I want you to encourage the artistic, creative part of yourself. And so many people will tell me, it's amazing to me. Nope, I'm not creative. I'm an engineer, I'm a mathematician, I'm a doctor. And I would say, okay, let's start with just bullet, like Carrie, you said one sentence. I'm going to even say just one word. I have
yeah,
people who have
yes,
started with one, like, list
yes,
of words. That's all they could get down. Great. Whatever you can get down in a journal, I don't care if it's one word, start there. And the to kind of make a big circle here, we were talking about the divine feminine. The part of all of us that is the artist, that is the creator, is connected to both our child self and the divine feminine. And the divine feminine, is within all women and all men. It is not gender based, okay? So I think the way through this dark night is into the light through the creative part of you.
yes,
You know,
yes,
through
yes,
encouraging the child
yes,
voice.
yes,
Don't you think, Carrie?
yes. And one of the things I keep saying is, in native tribes and primitive tribes, whatever, they would often use the word the creator
Yes.
for, and I really believe this is our authentic, I don't like the word God, it's just my aversion to that word. Our authentic higher power self is the creator. We're the creator.
Yes.
And so when you engage that, you can engage creativity as your spiritual path. It doesn't have to be a spiritual path that has any kind of godhead or minister involved.
Yes.
And so I also think creativity really taps into, like you said, the divine feminine. And from that, the biggest purpose of these interviews is that you find some relief
Yes.
and some path out of it. And that creativity, it starts to engage energy that rejuvenates you. It's inexhaustible. When I do creativity, I'm not saying I don't get tired, but the energy itself is so inexhaustible. You
Yes.
step into it, and that's also for people, because when you go through depression, with everything that's going on right now, scrolling through social media and seeing one bad thing after another, we get very exhausted.
Oh, I'm so glad you bring that up. So, what one bit of advice, one tip I would give for this time, as opposed to the New Age movement or the 60s, is people put away TV, put away reading everything. If you feel a need to know, which I understand, and that makes you feel responsible, decide you're going to read once a week. I will tell you, the news doesn't change that often. It really doesn't change that much. Stop inhaling all of the news. I want the news to come from your heart. And there's a word that we haven't yet used, Carrie, that I want to speak about, because you say the creator. Please pray to the creator in you to find your divine path out and through and back into the light. Because the whole purpose of all of our suffering is to bring us to a greater, deeper version of ourselves. That's what we're here for. That's why we came to planet Earth, was to learn how to love ourselves and to learn deep layers of ourselves. So please, 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 rather than inhaling the that which is given to you through somebody else's eyes, I want you to inhale your own creative self. Inhale your
And
divine self.
and the way to do it is get out art books, look at paintings of art, listen to great music. Uh, it's so easy to do. It's
Oh,
really easy.
oh, and another really easy way is look at where Carrie is. Go sit outside. Go to Mother Earth. I will tell you, the earth will feed you. If you are struggling, go to some part. Like for me, I'm a water person. I go to the water.
I'm
So,
a tree person. I have to be around trees. And then I'm suddenly like, I'm regenerated.
right, then
Uh,
there are mountain people who need
yeah.
to go into the
Yeah.
mountains. Please use the outside. It's really healthy for you right now. You need to breathe good air. But go to the earth, bring all of your sorrows. Like I love sitting by a tree, asking the tree to take
Yes.
my sorrows,
Yes.
take my rage, take my
Yes.
frustrations, right?
Yes.
So
And Ellen, I want to add for the people who are listening to this in small apartments in like New York City, which I have friends there, and I know you do too. And in any big city where you're in a small apartment, I was taught this by my mentor: is take a house plant,
oh, yes.
get a house plant, and just put your hands in the soil. Sit there with your hands in the soil of the house plant. Second thing is stick your phone out the window and take pictures of the sky. Find the ways you can do it wherever you're at, because I don't know that everybody would be able to get to a natural setting. We're on the West Coast, and we have
Right,
a lot
right.
of that
But
around
it's
us.
Central Park. There is Central Park, and
Yeah, that's
I
true.
spent a
That's
lot
true.
of time my New York years in Central Park crying with those trees, let me tell you.
Well,
So
with the pandemic, are a lot of people doing that? I'm wondering.
I think right
They
now,
they are right now. Okay,
I
okay.
think people can get at internet in Central Park. And if you can't, there are trees almost on every street in New York City. Look at them, bring them into your apartment with your envisioning powers,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sit with your back, imagining if you like sit against a wall, imagine that being a
I like
tree
that. I
with a
like the bark behind the back. But
yeah,
also, I used to send clients home with baggies of soil.
yes, yes,
So even if you can get some soil, honestly, touching it is
yes.
amazing. There's one other thing I want to touch upon before we run out of time. It's this. There was another huge turning point. Okay, Dark Night of the Soul. Ellen had really good advice about first getting stabilized. And that can be simply, doing herbal remedies that Ellen will put a list of. That can be like even writing a word in journals. And what I learned was I had to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
And in Water, I talk about that. I put posties, that's based on the truth. Post-it notes, get out of bed. Did you brush your hair today? Have you eaten today? I know, right? Like I had to write notes to myself for me to survive. And so I would suggest also you got to start setting a few things you're going to do every day to start. Okay, for those listening who are beyond that and then you can go and start exploring and experimenting, trying to find your own beauty and joy. We're calling it divine feminine, intuition, but anything that speaks to you, that excites you. And then finally, this is the final thing I wanted to talk about was the huge turning point. Ellen is a healer. I'm a book coach healer. And it was the turning, because I have a lot of clients in this place right now, Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
It's the turning to then give back to other people.
Carrie,
That,
oh my God, I just wrote that down.
oh my God, it's
Just
so
write it
true.
down. Yes.
I remember the moment, I remember exactly where I was standing, and I was holding a phone and it had a cord. That's how long ago it was. It had
Yeah.
one of those spirally cords. I'll never forget it. And the moment I was like, oh, that's what then truly shifts the depression. When you serve, and this is the biggest thing I want to say about serving. If you think you have to be perfect to serve, you are completely wrong. You can it's just owning who you are, and you're this flawed, uh, imperfect, beautiful being, setting an intention for the greatest and highest good of anybody who comes to work with you, and then letting the universe help that person. And you'll have difficulties, and some clients will go awry, and you'll be great. Sometimes the people will love you, sometimes people won't. That's not the point. And the fact that you're not completely healed isn't the point, because you're going to die not completely healed. Anyway, so what would you say about turning to serve?
Oh my gosh, Carrie. I mean, you're, speaking to the choir, but I will tell you that when I was basically asked by God to start my healing practice, I was a complete and utter mess. And I used to, I mean, honestly, I mean, that's why I was laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I used to think, are you serious? Like, God, are you serious? Like, you seriously think I can help somebody? And the answer was, yes, please go and do it. And I would be having my complete anxiety on the subway, because I started in New York City, on the subway going from, I lived at that time at 106 in Riverside Drive. And my office was down in the 20s, like 23rd Street, and I'd have to take a subway. I would be a wreck, a complete wreck. I'd get to my office, and as soon as a patient, or at that point I called them clients, walked in the door, it was amazing. It was as though all of my issues went aside, went away. And as I focused on another person and I focused on being of service to another human being, it was incredible how much better I felt. Now, not everybody who's listening is going to be called to be a healer or a coach or a writer, but I assure you, whatever you do, if you hold intention to be of service with whatever your gifts are, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a mathematician, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a school teacher, you can be of service. Just this morning, Carrie, I had the most wonderful experience, and I wanted to write about it, but now I don't need to because I can tell you about it. So I went out for a run, and I realized that I had forgotten my mask, and I wanted a cup of coffee after my run. And so I looked down, and I had a jogging bra on, then a little tiny shirt, and a little like running jacket because it was cool when I left. And I was like, well, I took off the shirt on top of the running bra, and I made a mask out of it, right? I was like, I tripled it up, made a mask. And then two men arrived after me, and one of them had a mask on and the other one didn't. And I don't know what language they spoke, but they spoke maybe some form of uh, African language. Anyway, and I could hear them talking, and then I saw them laughing and pointing at me. And the other guy took off his shirt, made a
Oh my God, how funny is that?
laughing. And I just felt so touched that I decided to pay for his cup of coffee without him knowing. And I said to the
You're
woman
so
behind
cute.
the counter, I said, hey, can I just, buy them whatever they want? And she was flustered because the new system. She said, just let me ask them. And he got some kind of a latte. And I left before, that he would find out. But just the act of giving made me so happy. It was so exciting to be this kind of little trickster of like, oh, he doesn't know a free cup of coffee is coming. So you know what? You can give for free. Somebody once gave me a hug with their smile. It was on a day when I thought that I couldn't take it any longer and didn't want to be on planet Earth. And she walked by me, and I don't know, she was an older woman. I don't know if she could sense the pain I was in, but giving me her smile, and it wasn't just a short smile, it was a smile that seemed to last forever. It was like she said, I understand and I love you and you're okay. And that smile kept me here. So give a smile, give your heart away to somebody. You don't even have to say anything. Just if you see them suffering, just smile. Just give them a smile. Oh, you can't with the mask. If you can't with the mask, smile with your eyes. Just a nod. Just
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
lets somebody know that you care.
yeah. And I would say right now, and I know this when I went through the dark night, um, you're just so angry and upset with the world and with everything that came before that created this paradigm, and with all of the people not stepping up to the plate to fix it. It's hard to think of giving.
Yeah.
But the absolute truth is, and this is in the Course in Miracles. So I'm going to list a lot of these books that we've been talking about as resources and support for people. But in the Course in Miracles, which really helped transform me, was the notion that when you give, that is the receiving. Giving is receiving. And the moment you start to get that is what we're talking about giving back. So when I'm giving, and the biggest thing I want to say, if you want to give, also really set the intent that you're doing it for the greatest and highest good of the other person. Yeah. Ellen does this when I've gotten readings from her over the phone. She does readings as well, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And I do it as a book coach. My intent is for you to really be able to authentically express yourself, and that and my intent is really for your greatest and highest good. And I want to say that, set that intent. I've been meeting a lot of coaches lately with the program that I'm doing, Ellen, a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing how much because everything's being done online, so many more people are becoming coaches. Mm. And what I keep seeing is you really have to set the intent that I am here in whatever way for the greatest and highest good of the other person. Absolutely. And you want to think that way too, for you to be able to receive the greatest and highest good back for yourself, and not, I'll give to them, but not until they succeed better than I, I'll give, but it is limited and conditional, which is very human ego. So you have to really work to give back in a really healthy way.
And one thing I just want to say, I know we could go on forever, but
I know.
You keep touching on it, and I keep thinking, oh, I want to offer something. This is, you keep bringing up, if you're enraged and you don't want to give, or you feel resistance. Yeah. Yes. If you are enraged, I have an amazing tool called the wood chopper. All of my patients love to hate it, but when they do it, they're like, oh my God, this helps so much. So Carrie, we will also put information about how to do the wood chopper.
Okay, good. Good. Nice. Excellent. I love it. Yeah. So what this is building, so I just started doing these videos yesterday, and it's building into great resources of books and other resources that anyone listening to this can go to. If you are feeling the dark night of the soul and you are desiring to be part of the change, when you become part of the change you wish to see, I promise you, you won't have so much despair about the world.
Exactly.
You just won't, because you're part of the change that you wish to see. And I don't know, it just shifts one's outlook. Okay, so I would like to end, if you don't mind, Ellen, is that okay?
Yes.
I want to just plug Ellen now and tell you guys, so she's based in West Seattle. And her healing sessions, she's the real thing. So if you really want to heal, Ellen is amazing. She has many, many years of experience, many different clients she's worked with, and the wisdom she's gained through the much experience she has. And she's very connected to divine healing. And she very much does it for the greatest and highest good of her patients. So Ellen's based in West Seattle, but Ellen, what do you offer over the phone for the people who aren't in Seattle?
So these days I'm mostly working on Zoom platform.
Oh, okay.
I love seeing you all, and I love that connection. So the best way to get in touch with me is through email at ellen@ellennewhouse.com. And Carrie will put that up there. Yes. That's also the same as my website. You can read about me, although that's under construction. So that website is all right. You might find a little bit about me. And I'm doing mostly intuitive coaching, but I do sound healing. And Carrie, if you want, do you want to end with the sound healing today?
Well, okay. So what I was going to ask you, Ellen, is yes, let's do that. Okay. But let's also see if there's any more messages. I didn't bring my tarot outdoors, which I did with the first call. And it was really helpful. So if we'll sit for a second and see if there are any more messages. But before we end, and Ellen's book is Nothing Ever Goes On Here. And it talks about her very difficult childhood up to the point where she is starting to own herself as a healer. Now, I understand you're working on book 2, which we're all waiting for too, because I want to know, well, then what happened? Yes. Like, how did Ellen get to the place she is today? And that's available on Amazon. Nothing ever goes on here. And then just really quickly, Water's coming out in October. I'm a book coach, and I do readings, my metaphysical readings myself, using Zoom. And my website is artofstorytellingonline.com and carolineallen.com, but all of that will list. So now I would love to end it with, first, we'll sit for a moment and see if there's any more messages. And then Ellen has very graciously offered the sound healing, which is very profoundly healing, I have found. So, okay.
Okay, so I do hear one message.
Oh, you do already?
Yes.
You're so fast.
I've heard it. I keep hearing it. And
oh, okay.
Like, oh,
okay.
Is
okay.
that I wish you peace and all understanding beyond what you can imagine.
That's fantastic. And guess what? I just got a message.
Oh, good.
Your depression is your integrity.
Yes. Yes.
Your anxiety is your integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Your anger is your integrity. You're right. You're right. It is upsetting. It is depressing. It is upsetting. So in other words, we also don't want to live in the bubble of pretending like this isn't upsetting. It is upsetting. And what we're trying to do with this call is also show you ways to come into the light, to deal and create the change. So we're not just saying, we want you to come in the light and just accept everything. Although there are some spiritual traditions that talk about full acceptance. But the biggest thing, the message I got was, you know what, you're right. And I know when I heard that message, you're right to be pissed off, it changed everything. I was like, yeah, I'm right. Confidence, less depression, owning that you're right to be upset right now.
Absolutely. And cannot heal what you cannot feel.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent, Ellen. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm ready. The sound healing affects me very strongly. So I'm getting ready.
I wondered, Carrie, after I
know.
it, I was like, oh my goodness.
I get affected very strongly. So gently, please.
Okay.
Because you're going right into my ear.
I know. All right. And into your heart, because today is for the heart. So. Mahayu, 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 oh yeah, oh yeah, Mahayu, Mahayu, yeah.
Thank you, Ellen. That was very calming.
Good. I
feel so much calmer.
Good. I thought, oh, remember how this affects Carrie. So
yeah. I've done sound healings that have sent me like flying off the planet before. Yeah. Well, Ellen, I cannot thank you enough. This has been unbelievably dimensional and helpful. And I just adore you. I love you. And I thank you so much. I hope that this reaches so many people who need to hear it right now.
I hope so. And thank you, Carrie, for doing it and for honoring all of us where we're at this time and place, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you so much. This has been a great
Take care.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.